We really appreciate you spending time with us. I know we are all very busy right now as we prep for the coming school year. A special thank you to Dr. Hairston and Sharon Fraser for joining us tonight, because we know they are especially busy on all of the work going on in the district. My name is Katie Sonnen Lee. I'm a parent of 2 elementary school students here in the district, and I'm also on the board of Action for Equity. We are a Black-led, intentionally multiracial coalition building a movement to advance equity for students in Winston-Salem Forsyth County schools in the areas of academic achievement, access to high-quality instruction, and safe and healthy school environments. I'm representing Action for Equity tonight because our fearless leader, Kelly Easton, is on a statewide webinar with the North Carolina Justice Center as we speak, which she was already booked for when this opportunity came up. So I said I would be Kelly for tonight. She's discussing safety and equity in education policy during the COVID-19 pandemic and beyond. And she asked me to take her place tonight since unfortunately she can't be in 2 places at once. So I invite you to close your eyes, take a deep breath, and imagine that you hear Kelly speaking during my introduction. As part of Action for Equity's commitment to achieve equity in education here in Winston-Salem Forsyth County schools, we're pushing for a holistic education that puts families first by addressing the needs of the whole child, their social, emotional, and physical health, as well as the right to develop pride in culturally relevant spaces. For this, we're proud to partner with many amazing organizations in the community, including Love Out Loud and the Black Philanthropy Initiative, to create a platform called Kijiji, which is Swahili for community. The Kijiji platform empowers families and community members to engage and network with one another while strengthening their ability to ensure all of our students receive the best education possible. During this series, which we are calling Back to Virtual School, we're going to hear from some amazing parents, community organizers, and mission-based organizations on the who, what, when, where, and why of Plan C. After the discussion with Dr. Hairston, we will hear more about the upcoming Kijiji sessions, including roundtables with Black educators and parents, and panels with experts on nourishing social, emotional health, and more. Tonight, we're kicking off Forsyth Parent Power, a regular community event in partnership with Sharon Fraser, who is the district and Title I Parent Family Engagement Program Manager. She works to ensure that Winston-Salem Forsyth County schools families are equipped for success as they journey through their school and academic career. Sharon, I'll turn it over to you now.
Thank you, Katie, and not Kelly. So again, Sharon Fraser, my work, well, before I go there, I'd like to say a special thank you. And if I could give a virtual standing ovation to our superintendent, Dr. Hairston, for her tireless, courageous, incredible work that she's done since she's been here, but especially during these challenging times. So thank you, Dr. Hairston. So the work that I, along with school-based family engagement coordinators do is, again, to ensure that all of our parents and families are equipped to support fully the education of their children. So whatever it takes to make sure that our parents and families have what they need to advocate, to listen, to participate, to make decisions. That is the work that we do. And the focus for me for the last 2 years has been to make sure the message that it takes all of us together doing this work so that each one of our students receives the best education possible. So again, programs such as Parent Power, Parent Academy have been around since 1998, actually. And we just continue to tried to figure out how to make it better, how to make information more accessible to all of our parents. So at some point, you'll be hearing information about our new CARES teams, which will add an additional layer of support for families. So we're here for you, and we need each one of us, community partners, parents, our faith partners, all working together. Thank you. Back to you. Oh, Katie, I forgot what I'm supposed to hear. So at this time, again, we are just elated to have Dr. Angela Hairston with us. And Dr. Hairston is going to tell us a little bit about herself. Thank you.
Thank you, Sharon. And I always love, Sharon is such an advocate for our children and our families. And so thank you again. Relative to myself, I grew up right up the highway in Danville, Virginia. Spent the last 20 years in Georgia and was recently a superintendent in Richmond County, Georgia, which is known as Augusta and home of the Masters. I have been here since September 3rd. And I have loved just every minute. It's flown by. Someone reminded me, you've been almost a year. It's just flown by just wonderfully fast, I guess, under the circumstances. But enjoy working with our Board of Education under the leadership of Chair Shay Woodbury, a community activist and certainly an advocate for all of our children, and just surrounded by a great team. My husband and I together have 5 children, 3 boys and 2 girls, and 2 daughters-in-law, and they are just wonderful ladies in our family. And so we have 7 together, and so we are parents, and we understand. My children are all grown and adults. The youngest one is 22, but I will say that we understand the needs of parents, and we understand all that our parents are being asked to do during these times. So I'm going to share a little bit about Plan C, as I've been asked to do, and try to save time to answer questions. I'm going to share my screen here. That might be the wrong one. This one. Let's get this admit out of the way. And we're going to go to a slideshow, I believe. Okay, is that in slideshow mode, Sharon? Awesome. Okay. Very early on, after the beginning of the last quarter, we began working on our return to school because we knew it would be different. We knew that the return would have some special requirements, and we knew that we wanted to be prepared. So in developing our plan, we had a team of across the district, and I can tell you that the leaders in different committees, I mean, they have worked tirelessly. I mentioned the other day that it just doesn't really seem like we had an end of the year. It just seemed very continuous because our team meets on a regular basis, and it certainly has been a tireless effort from our team in the process that we're in. We know that we're currently in phase 2. There are 3 phases. We went through the phase 3 of stay at home when we sent most of our employees to work from home. It was new for us as educators to telework and work from home, but we did quite well. I was very proud of our employees because we did not want to contribute to the advancement of the virus. We wanted to adhere to the law and to the executive order from the governor. We are now in safer at home, and we continue to allow our employees to work from home, and we'll continue that option as much as possible. Our district office will resume full-time on the 3rd, but for the most part, we're still working with a skeleton crew on site, and then a lot of people are working from home. As we launched our return to school fall, reopening safely, our vision was to create a safe, vibrant, and equitable learning community for all of our students. So you all might know that Effie McMillan is our equity officer. She, Dr. Frazier, Nicolette Grant, our new deputy, Tricia McManus, always keep equity in the forefront and keep us focused on equity throughout the district. And so we knew we needed a comprehensive plan for reopening. We wanted to keep everyone safe. We have a wide range of opinions about COVID and the coronavirus. Some fear, they are actually living in fear. Some staff members and students and parents are ready to get back to the business of school in the way it was before COVID. But public education must be accessible to all students, and that's what we keep in the forefront regardless of the model. But just to give you a timeline, and it doesn't seem that it's been this long, but it has been a long time since we had school as we knew before. And it started on March 14th, with March 18th being our first meeting with our community members to talk about what school would look like. Our reopening task force, as you see, has been working since May 13th. So we did not start the work of reopening yesterday. We started the reopening work March 13th. We had lots and lots of opportunities for people to hear. Chair Woodbury assigned a special committee to work with us on the reopening strategies led by board member Marilyn Parker. And I just want you to understand the scope of the work that we've been involved with. We also have to realize that, you know, again, school is coming. We can work, but school is coming. So on the 16th, one of our goals all along was to open schools safely. And we knew that around the country, schools were opening with allowing students to attend school. In fact, I had a webinar to talk about Plan B, opening with a few students coming every day, the high school students being virtual, a full webinar. But as we got closer to the opening date, we started our plan of execution, our modeling, having our staff in the building. We realized that the governor's announcement, which occurred on the 14th, gave us time because we knew it was coming, but really we just didn't have enough time to open safely. We needed more time. We needed to bring our staff back gradually. And we had so many teachers indicate and employees that they wanted alternate work assignments and they did not want face-to-face instruction. So we knew that we needed to take our time and open safely and ensure that people felt good about opening. We had many students who did not want to come back either. So we needed more time. But more than that, to our parents and community, we are going to need more resources. We've communicated that since day one. We have a budget that has fewer dollars in it than the previous year. You cannot open with more requirements and fewer dollars. You just cannot. So hopefully we'll see that addressed over the next few weeks. So what do we use to develop a plan? We used our CDC guidelines, which have been revised. And you might ask, were they revised enough to have us go? Really, they were not. They pretty much were not revised enough. And probably revisions of CDC requirements, certainly we paid attention to them, but what we paid attention to mostly was our own Department of Instruction lighting the way forward in North Carolina. We used our Health and Human Services toolkit to give us information. We had planning teams of over 200 parents, students, employees, district leaders, principals. Our Board of Education provided feedback. Teacher advisory gave us feedback. The classified advisory teams gave us feedback. And you can see that many, many hours went into planning a safe reopening. So what were we charged with doing? There were three options that every district had to explore during this period of time. One was to reopen with minimal social distancing. Children would be required to, and that was intended for communities that had low community spread. The plan B was where we hope to be, is a lower density and having children come in for face-to-face instruction. As we know, children need to be back in school. And plan C is where we landed, because we knew that we needed to be able to have our children return safely. But the safest place and most reasonable place at this time is plan C, where we can help our children learn. So what's plan C involve? Plan C is virtual instruction. Now I'll be the first to admit, in the spring when we closed, virtual instruction for every student was certainly new to us, as it was all the children across the United States. So I think we did a pretty good job, but we knew that there was a lot to be desired. So we interviewed our teachers, our students, and we understood that we needed more face-to-face instruction. We also needed textbooks. And we're so thankful for Project Impact and for the ability to use some federal dollars to buy some textbooks for our younger children and some of our older students in literacy in English as well. And so we realized that remote learning for us would look like a combination for the younger students of screen time and use of their new textbooks. We also know that our older students, it will be more face-to-face, which tends to be more engaging and more structured. We also realize that we still will have students that just do not engage. For whatever reason, something is going on at home. So we have the concept, this 26 people that were hired through a federal grant, and will be hired pretty shortly. And the CARES team members will take care of our children. They will actually be charged with going out to the community and supporting children who may not log in, who may have difficulty setting up their virtual experience. Sharon is a part of that team, so we want to be sure that that we help parents, understand the need to support children in their homes. Today I had a podcast with Dr. Butner as a guest, and he mentioned the concept of a rose. He mentioned that we have to keep we keep in forefront, our children are roses. And he said, keep the word rose in mind. When you're setting up home learning, we must have a routine. A routine is necessary, just like you do in regular school. We must be organized, R for routine, O for organized. We must give children a space to work, and we must be encouraging. And this is the concept that I think I would encourage our CARES team to adopt. So their sole purpose is to, upon referral from the school, be in the community, working with parents and students on the best way to conduct virtual learning. We don't want to lose any children. And also a part of the CARES process is setting up community learning centers. Learning centers so children can go out to centers, and we'll have computers and Wi-Fi devices in their hands, so they may need stronger access to the internet, or they may need tutoring, and these CARES teams will be sure that they get that support. Boots on the ground, as my grandmother would say. So I want to talk about also the virtual academy. To date, we have 5,881 students, and that is actually more students than in some school districts, many school districts across North Carolina. 5,881 students have said to us, I do not want to come back or go back to the classroom for learning. I do not want to go back to the classroom. I want to participate in the day-to-day, face-to-face virtual experience. And so our new virtual academy was established to accommodate those requests. And these students will remain in the virtual academy for as long as they would like to. And so we know that this will be face-to-face teaching. Also want to clarify, continue to clarify that virtual learning and e-learning for us will be quite different than before. Before, it was sort of self-paced, multiple platforms. On the left, students work more independently. This time, thanks to our Board of Education, we've moved to what's called Canvas Learning Management Platform, a one-stop shop for students. With the videos, the materials, there'll be more face-to-face teaching via Microsoft Teams. We've just been given permission to use Zoom. We've purchased Zoom for our teachers. And our teachers will actually log on and teach a regular schedule, and students will have a schedule just as if they were in school. Here's a high school schedule, and I want to talk a little bit about going back to B. If we should go back and we're able to accommodate the high school request, it would mean that they would attend 1 to 2 days per week. And then Friday would be sort of a face-to-face virtual for students for tutoring, you know, depending on the schedule. But they're going to have a schedule just as they would in school. Just so you know, when we return to school, this is a sample of what a class will look like. This is a sample of social distancing. We will be able to put 18 seats in some classes, 15 in others. And this really shows you and gives you an understanding of why all children can't return face-to-face. Children must be distanced, and we will have a mask requirement. This is a sample, another sample of a kindergarten classroom. And I'm hoping, I'm really hoping that we can get our children back face-to-face, but we also know having kindergarten and pre-K students sitting in sterile environments and not being able to interact will cause challenges as well. This is just a no-win situation. We needed time. I mentioned time. You can't go from here and take all of these things out and not store them somewhere. So additional dollars will be necessary to remove lots and lots of things that teachers have in classrooms to make them where we can socially distance students. And so I want you to know that time that we're out will be spent doing these kinds of things. A sample middle school class where desks are taped off and children can sit every other desk to ensure that children are socially distanced and they're not sliding desks all around the room. Example of a middle school science class. But lots and lots of work to be done. Now, parents often ask me about activities. They want to know, will we have clubs and activities? We will not have the before and after school programs on our campuses, as our teachers actually will teach from their classrooms if they so desire. Some will teach from their home, but many have asked if they could teach from their classrooms because the materials are there. We will have students in clubs virtually. We will look at field trips that have been embedded in our Canvas system, virtual field trips. Fall workouts are really guided and directed by the North Carolina High School Athletic Association. We follow their guidance because we know that our children must compete with other counties, and so we follow their guidance from the state. All of these other kinds of events are scheduled virtually so that children can continue the connectivity that they so enjoy. And we also know that we must address the social and emotional needs of children. And this is a very serious topic. So we will do lots of work with our children on understanding the coronavirus, understanding, grief, understanding themselves and their emotions. Some of our students have been through traumatic situations, and we want to help them through that process. But we also know that our parents need help and tips as well on how to self-care. Food services will continue as we had last spring. It would be very little change in that regard. So what happens next? We will start virtual online learning August 17th. Now, the first week, we will not start the instruction across the district. We'll spend some time working with our students on protocol for online learning, how to use the raise your hand symbol, how to use your chat box, how to share your screen. We'll have some etiquette, protocols and etiquette classes for our students relative to online learning. We'll go over expectations. We'll take time to get to know our students virtually. I held a class on young people, some of our students last week, and it was quite interesting. Some of them were still in the bed with their computers, and some of them were engaged and some not so much. So we have to establish a protocol. We will also take attendance. So students who do not show up virtually will be marked absent, and then they'll go into our attendance protocol. Behind the scenes, we'll define metrics for a safe return. There are lots of metrics out there that we can use, but we'll work with our health professionals, our board, and community members to establish metrics. Also, we will prepare sites for students to learn. We will be sure that their schools are prepared. As I mentioned, we have to move furniture. We have to get cleaning supplies and training done. We'll collaborate with our teachers on safety measures. Teachers must feel comfortable coming back, and we'll schedule a safe return. So thank you for allowing me to share our safe return plan and our C plan, and certainly we expect to have a great opening this year as well. Many of the open house events have already been planned by principal and will be virtual, and we're excited about their opportunity to share with you as well. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Hairston. That was so helpful to have all that information. We really appreciate you spending time with us tonight. We know you're very busy. Next in our agenda, we are going to move to a Q&A session. And Brittany Ward, who is from Hoops for Life, one of the wonderful organizations we have working with youth here in Winston-Salem, will ask questions from the community to Dr. Hairston. So Brittany, I will turn it over to you.
Okay. Hi, Dr. Hairston. Thank you for coming on and giving that elaborate description of, about safety and the return of our kids, like keeping everybody safe and abreast of what is to be expected. It's a lot of questions that parents have been asking since COVID has been here. And one that comes to mind with the children that have IEPs is like, how are they going to be with the remote learning spaces? Will they be equipped with helping kids with IEPs?
So we actually, believe it or not, over the summer, just the summer months, have held over 4,000 IEP meetings. And so DocuSign has been very helpful. Zoom meetings, conference calls have been held to help write IEPs that are most appropriate during these times. Our students are continuing to have their speech therapy. They continue with OT and PT, which are extra services remotely, working with various tools. But our teachers are teaching remotely as they would our students who are not in the exceptional program. Now some students cannot have a lot of screen time, so we provide them hard copies of the work, devise a system for securing that work, and also for tutoring. So we feel comfortable that we'll be able to meet the IEP goals of our students, and if not, then we certainly will go back to the drawing board to see how we can best meet the needs. A lot of our parents of our exceptional children they have opted not to have their children return because they feel that they want to keep them at home in their care. So we feel good about where we are with exceptional children, and always some opportunities to grow.
Okay. One of the
Let me
things
just say this,
you came through.
Mary Todd Allen is our Chief Operations Officer for Exceptional Education. And so if there's any concerns or questions at all, please send an email to Mary Todd Allen. She can be found on our website, and she will get right back to you.
Actually, that was the lead into the next question. He is actually holding a meeting at the same time. So were you aware that that meeting was being held at the same time as this meeting right here?
Oh, who's holding a meeting?
Todd
Mary Todd Allen?
Allen, yes.
No, I did not. No.
So a lot of those families, they are, yeah, he's hosting a Zoom meeting with the EC families. So,
Okay.
they also got a question that came in. It says, from parents, they wanted to know about the district and how would they was helping students with disabilities maintain. So, like with legally being blind, how would they have
So,
the same resources or adequate resources at these remote learning locations?
well, students who are blind certainly have an IEP that would address that, and certainly have assistance with hearing and reading and all of those kinds of things. So what I would say is that we have many children with a variety of exceptionalities. And what we have been able to do is have IEP meetings that meet their needs through the virtual learning platform. So every student would have a different, and they're called individualized education plans. So each student has a plan that should look really like no other. And our goal is to be able to write an IEP such that students, all students, can have access to learning. And that is an expectation. So if that is not happening, then Mary Todd Allen would be the person to contact to sit down for a conversation.
Okay. Can you clarify high school and middle school having face-to-face instructions on campus on Flex Fridays?
So right now, all of our students are virtual, and we will bring back to the Board of Education a Plan B in October. We're going to involve some of our students in that decision making. If I can share my screen one more time, I think I might be able to help you all with that, and it won't be for just a minute. So if you look at this schedule here, what we have to do is look at contact tracing. If I have an elementary school student, they'll attend one class, and this is high school, but this will be, they'll attend one class all day, and that one teacher will come in, maybe two. So let's say that one student is ill in this one class. That means that I need to close that class down with 17 students. Only 17 students will need to stay home for the next 14 days while they test and go through quarantine. Because if that's a possibility depending on how close they were. Let's take a look at a high school student. A high school student enters Math 1. There are 15 students in this class. There's one teacher. A high school student will go to second period. They could go to English, World History, or any of these classes. So that one student is now possibly with another group of students, maybe 10 students. Now we have 25 students they've been in contact with, and another teacher. And it goes on and on. So you could possibly, if a student came on this A day, they could possibly interact with 100 or more students plus 4 teachers. So now instead of having on virtual, no one out, now I have 4 teachers who have to quarantine for 14 days and possibly 100 students. So when we look at kids going to school, students going to school. We all want students to go to school. But when you have to contact trace, that's a whole nother level of experience. So we want to make sure that we share that with our students because we want them in school. But we also know that high school students are more likely to spread viruses. They're more likely not to wear their mask if anybody's not going to wear masks. And we've got to do some training and talking to our students and be very careful about how we bring them back. We'll have more to say about that in October.
Okay, this next question is about scheduling, and it's what are the schedules? What will the schedules be during the day for first graders versus well, elementary versus high school?
Do you mean while they're online?
Yes. Is there a set schedule?
Yes. So when parents attend their orientation before school opens, each teacher will provide their parents a schedule, and students are to follow that schedule. We will have a little less screen time for younger students, a little more screen time, do some work, check in, screen time, check in. High school students will have a little more screen time. So those schedules will be very scripted. Students will expect to log in or they'll be marked absent for that class. And all of that will be shared during our virtual open houses, which has been advertised on our website already.
Okay. So again, like with the scheduling, we have the uncertainty has maybe ask about the training. Oh, will there be training for parents using the different platform that is going to be that teachers are currently learning now?
Certainly. We are video recording parent sessions. Sharon, would you like to address that?
Yes. So actually, we will start some introductory sessions for parents next week. We're going to have to push things out quickly, but we will have some sessions that start next week. We'll be pushing out the Canvas training for our parents and families. I just need to check with technology, but I do know that it's starting next week. And those sessions, of course, videos and recorded as well as live assistance. So yes, and that's just technology, but there will be other sessions as well, including helping parents to set those protocols for learning at home and helping their students to get organized and stay organized. So we'll be posting the schedule next week.
Will that be provided like with Spanish translation or in different languages for?
Yes, yes,
planning?
yes. All of our trainings. So we would need for parents to, and we'll have to talk about that with David Sisk in terms of, you know, if parents request language that we don't have readily available, we do contract with a company to provide that. So we'll talk about procedures and protocols for parents to request a language that they require.
Well, okay. Can you actually explain what is the CARES? What is that program, and you know who will actually be benefit the most from the CARES program?
So the CARES program is set up to really go out to the community to work with students who are struggling with online learning. Oftentimes we find that, you know, children really surprise us. You know, children really surprise us with online access. I have learned more from my own children in the world of virtual. I can tell you in March, I could not have shared my screen so readily. And I could not have broken out into groups. And I've even had a book club that I started on Zoom. I mean, these are things that I never would have really thought. I thought I had to have people at my house. I had to, and no, we have probably a better time on Zoom than we do face to face, because we can all get to that one point. So children are incredibly resilient, but we do know that sometimes home lives are challenging. There's a lot of stressors in the home, and parents need help. We're not confused about that. And so CARES teams will be in the community. There will be 5 of them. They will knock on doors, set up learning centers, and it will be, as I said, my grandmother used to say, boots on the ground. People who are out in the community helping children who have lost their way, or even families that have lost their way. So we're excited. Each school has its own team, and their job is to be sure that they take time to identify students and put some interventions in place at the school. But when we know the interventions aren't working at the school, now we need to get in the community with children. And so that's to be sure the parents understand expectations and to help parents and students be together in a productive way.
So I'd like to add one caveat to that. This is a place where we can also use our community to help us to identify students and families who may need the services of our CARES team. So we will be really focusing on finding those families, but we know that we have community boots on the ground, people who will know what's happening with the family or if we miss someone. So we want to make sure that word gets out. We need everybody helping us.
So just for clarity, does every school have a CARES team?
So every school will have a team. Yes, every school will have its own team, probably 3 to 5 people who keep an eye on children logging in and working through solutions. There will be 5 teams in the community consisting of a parent assistant, someone who will work with parents, a technology individual, someone who can work with the technology. Also, there will be a translator. We plan to hire a translator for each team. So the multiple teams will consist of folks that can really help get children and parents to resources throughout the process.
Okay. Katie, you got a question?
Yes, I did. With my parent hat on, Dr. Hairston, I know there are a lot of parents that are concerned that their kids may miss pieces of the live meetings during the day as parents work from home or transition between this put together childcare arrangement and this put together childcare arrangement. And also, you know, with older kids maybe working or helping their younger siblings get through the day on their learning. So will students be able to kind of catch up at nights or on weekends as parents are able to help them better at those times?
I am going to say that I really hope that we do not hold our older students accountable for ensuring that our younger students are learning online. It doesn't hurt to have the teenagers help, but they need their own space in learning. Remember, we're advocating for every family to ensure that every student has a routine, that they're organized, they have their space, and that they're encouraged. And it will concern me to have the teenager have the role of ensuring all the other children are learning. So that's the first. We have to find a way. Now, teachers are able to record lessons. This session right now, I think, is being recorded. So teachers are able to record lessons. And I encourage parents, if you do have a challenge with children going from place to place due to childcare, or an older teen who has to help out part of the day, have a conversation with your teacher and ask that the lesson be recorded. And from there, the student can play the lesson back later. But we want to make sure we honor our older students and we don't put too much on the students. We also know that some of our students began to work during the day. And remember, we will take attendance using that face-to-face component. So my suggestion is to work with your teacher, work with your principal. We're going to be extremely flexible with our families because we know everybody has different circumstances. But just know that there will be a schedule that children must adhere to just as they would on a regular school day.
Will that CARES team include a teacher or a tutor or a TA?
Yes, ma'am.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Now we're going to talk about remote learning. What is the difference between the remote learning and then the virtual academy?
So the virtual academy is 5 days a week, face-to-face, very structured schedule, and the students will not return should we return face-to-face, and that they will remain on virtual. So everything is done virtually. Remote learning, there may be when children return, they will have some face-to-face. So for example, if children attend school Monday and Tuesday, they will have face-to-face with their teacher, but for the remainder of the week, there will be more independent guided learning. So we kind of encourage our younger ones, our older ones, to stay on remote or virtual, and then allow the younger ones to get to school on a day-to-day basis. But that remains to be seen. Mm-hmm.
Okay, Katie, you got another question for me?
Yes, I do. Another question from a parent. As a parent myself, I wonder about this. If there are students who can, fail to complete homework or different projects during the semester, especially for younger students who really can't do a lot of it without a parent or another adult sitting next to them, will they be given a makeup period or some kind of flexibility in figuring that out as we move through?
Mm-hmm.
I know you've talked about maximum flexibility, but there's a lot of grace for parents and caregivers needed as well, I think, as well as students.
Right, they're going to be graded. Students will receive actual grades this semester. Last spring, there was a lot of bending when it came to grading students, and a lot of opportunity for children to make up work and do it at different times. But this time we'll stick to a schedule, and parents will need to work with their teachers on any flexibility. Mm-hmm. And someone asked, will Flex Fridays continue? They will continue with virtual learning. Flex Fridays was an opportunity to encourage families to have fun, enjoy some activities, do something that was enriching, and so those will continue. Yes.
That's great news. We loved Flex Fridays at our house, and I heard the same from a lot of parents that it was really helpful to be able to catch up with things. Yeah, someone on the chat just said that as well.
Mm-hmm.
Brittany, do you have a question you want me to go ahead?
Yeah, you can go ahead.
Okay. As far as contact tracing goes, we had a question in the chat about, if there's a student, like you said, who may be in high school and contacts a whole bunch of folks. How will it work? How will you decide when it is safe to go back to Plan B as far as when we feel like it is a good time?
Well, we have a set of metrics that we'll present to the Board of Education, and they include the percentage of positive cases in the community. We'll also include perceptions, teacher perceptions. We must have our teachers feeling that the environment that we place them in is going to be safe. We know that students have choices. Students can attend the virtual academy or attend face-to-face. That's a choice for a student. Teacher doesn't have that choice. If a teacher's not hired through virtual academy and we go back face-to-face, they don't have a choice of being virtual or face-to-face. That's a choice that's not in the menu. So we must be sure that we honor them as well. So we will do a lot of work in talking with our teachers, and it depends a lot on what's happening across our state. I have encouraged our employees during the stay at home and during the safer at home to work from home. In fact, our board was presented with a teleworking policy. Oftentimes people think, educators cannot work from home, but we do a lot of work from home because I did not want our employees to be to unnecessarily be out and about and contribute to community spread. I encourage everyone to do everything you can to keep community spread down. And if you wear your mask and you keep your distance and you stay away from big crowds and you keep the numbers down, it makes it a lot easier for us to go back to school.
With the talk in the chat, a parent asked, is there talk about the standard testing, not having standard testing for 2021 and 2020?
That's been a request from several superintendents, and we encourage parents to contact your legislators. Legislators and our Department of Instruction have to request those waivers. We already know that some states have requested waivers from testing from the Department of Education. The U.S. Department of Education is actually has to waive the testing. So we encourage you to contact your legislators. We feel that that is just too much to put on children and educators and families during this time.
Okay.
I think Liz had a question from a community side.
Okay.
Hey, Dr. Hairston, as a nonprofit employee and someone in the community that doesn't necessarily have children, but I'm very passionate about making sure education is equitable this year. We've had a few questions about what the call to action for the community is to serve the most vulnerable students. And, there's been some talk going around about those remote learning centers. How would community leaders or locations that wanted to be a part of that get involved or connected?
Part of it, you could contact F.M. McMillan if you want a formalized setting, but sometimes it's just, the Nike term, just do it. We all know that we have certain communities that have children who are struggling, families who are struggling. And oftentimes, if you could just help a family of 5 and allow that mom or that dad to go to work and continue with some sense of being normal, that helps. If you took a block and said everybody on this particular block will come to this community center in the morning, and we're going to help you let your parents go to work 2 or 3 days a week, and you know that you're going to be consistently there. That's the kind of action that it's going to take, because we know we can't bring children together in big ways. Now, people ask, well, why can't we use the schools for learning centers? Well, the teachers will be teaching from their classrooms. So that's why we can't bring the children in for community learning centers. But it's going to take identifying communities and just getting it done. And there's no roadmap to this. There's no pay for it. We can bring meals, we can bring breakfast and lunch. But unfortunately, we're and I talked to a group earlier today, and as superintendent, we are, our days, and as many of you did, our day started at 7 a.m. this morning with this very type of call. Interesting enough, it was a call on diversity, inclusion, and equity. And here we are at 8:30 at night having these conversations. We're willing to do anything we can do to help our children, but we are going to need our community members to help us rally children. If you find a small location, a community center, a library, it just takes one at a time. It's sort of an adopt a neighborhood model at this time. So we need your help. We need your help.
Thank you. All right, Brittany, I think we have time for one more question if you want to go ahead and ask that.
Yes, it's about like education. Like now we see education now since like COVID and remote learning and actually education going back to the grassroots level. It's not going to be easy, but for the entities that are here to help make it work, what is that process? What does that process look like? Will there be a stipend provided for the remote locations? Is it strictly ran by volunteers? What does that look like?
It looks like it used to look a long, long time ago. And I speak about my mother a lot because my mother is just an awesome woman. But I can remember many, many moons ago, she worked a second shift job. And then when she stopped working for a period of time, my mother always kept two things in her refrigerator, bologna, and she kept Kool-Aid. And that's because we love bologna sandwiches and drank Kool-Aid all the time. But we also knew if there were other children in the neighborhood who just came by, she wanted to be able to give them something. And then when she cooked dinner, if someone else came by, if it was, fish and whatever we had, string beans, there was enough for other people who may have stopped by. And I have a mother-in-law very similar to that. And it's just an abundance. And I think at this time, there's not enough dollars and not enough hours in the day for the few people that need to help children. We're going to have to pour ourselves into this. We're going to have to volunteer, find those opportunities. We're going to have to be those mothers and fathers who simply say, you know what, I have some time. Let me share my time and my expertise with my neighbor as we get through this. We really have to go back to being neighbors. And so not every neighbor gets paid a stipend for doing something for their neighbor. And there's just not enough time. Now, if we can provide PPE and help with some cleaning supplies, and if we can help with school supplies, we can do some drives and those kinds of things. But this is one of those situations where it's going to have to be, I'm willing to help my neighbor. And I'm not sure at the end of this rainbow what will be in it for me. But, if you have a belief in a higher being, it's there. It's there. So I encourage all of us to think differently, because it's going to take, we're going to have to, this organization called My Brother's Keeper. We're going to have to be my brother's keeper in this situation.
Thank you for that.
All right, you all, we are almost at our time. We had more than 100 questions, I think, submitted for tonight. I know we could only get to a few, but it's been really helpful to hear directly from district personnel, especially I know during this time when we all have so many questions as parents, as members of this community, as folks who want to help. I've had so many folks texting me, calling me, messaging me, emailing me, saying, like Brittany said, like, what do we do? How do we help? So we heard a little bit about that from Dr. Hairston, and I'm sure we will hear more over the next few weeks here before school starts. So thank you to Dr. Hairston. Thank you to Sharon Frazier for joining us tonight from the district. Thank you to Brittany for moderating and always being a great voice for children in our community. We appreciate you all. And to everyone listening tonight, thank you for coming. We hope you got some of your questions answered and understand a little bit more about what this year will look like for students and families. I know as a parent, I have tons more questions, but I know some information will just have to come as we get closer. I really wanted to highlight what Dr. Hairston said a few minutes ago about how we can all support students and educators getting back into schools by doing everything we can to reduce community spread and stay safe. The more we can reduce community spread and reduce COVID, the faster we can get back into schools. I know as a parent, I'm real excited about that. And I know educators are too, because we all know that kids learn best when they're in school, when it's safe and we can safely and equitably return to school. We encourage you to join us next Thursday for the next installment of this Kijiji series. I think Kelly will be back then, and I will not have to play the part of Kelly Easton on this call again, hopefully. But next week on August 8th at 7:30 p.m., we will host a Black Educators Roundtable, focusing on how we can infuse all educators in all schools with an equity mindset in everything that we do. So thank you for coming tonight. We look forward to seeing you next week. I know lots of you still have questions. We encourage you to listen for what the district shares more and more from your individual child's school. So thank you for coming, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you.
Take care. Thank you, Sharon. Thank you, Brittany.
Thank you,
Take care.
Dr. Hairston.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Katie.
Thank you all, ladies.
Thanks, Liz. Thanks,
Bye, all.
Brittany.
Thanks for coming.
Great job.